ask us to think for a moment how we would be responding if Bowe Bergdahl was our son. I really fear for his return to this country with the kind of rhetoric that is being spewed in this very room.
Barbara Starr, CNN, the Pentagon.
And Congresswoman Jackie Speier of California, you just heard her there expressing her concern about what's being said to describe Bergdahl is out front. And good to have you with us, Congresswoman. When you said you fear what might happen to him when he comes back to the United States, what did you mean?
I'm very concerned that there will be efforts to try him in the court of public discussion, as opposed to giving him all of the opportunities, all of the due process that he deserves, and very much the health care. It's medical, it's psychological. He's been in captivity for 5 years. He appears to have been fragile even before then. We need to establish a little compassion here.
It's obviously an important word, and I think meaningful when you said, what if it was our son? You know, and make people think about it that way. But of course, you know, there are soldiers who said they served with Bergdahl. They've come forward. They've called him a deserter. There are some who say that their sons they believe lost their lives looking for Bergdahl. Don't you think they've had a right to say all these things?
I think that we are a country in which everyone is innocent until proven guilty, for starters. I think that the jury is still out in terms of whether or not anyone, any military member lost their life in anticipation of locating Sergeant Bergdahl. And I think that we really need to take a step back and recognize that we have one very strong commitment, and that is to bring every single service member home. And that's what we're doing with Bowe Bergdahl, and we have to give him the time and the space to recover.
CNN has learned, Congresswoman, that Bergdahl served less than a month in the Coast Guard, then he joined the Army, and according to the Washington Post, he left the Coast Guard because he was psychologically troubled. You used the word fragile. If that's true, how is it that someone who would be struggling psychologically and only served a month in another branch of the armed forces be able to actually join the Army?
I think that goes back to what was happening in 2008. There were many people who were allowed to join the military that had records that under other circumstances would have prevented them as being unfit, whether it was having a sexual assault background or having been convicted of a minor offense. Under normal circumstances, they would not have been allowed to become members of the military. So in this case, his situation was such that I think they waived him in.
Congresswoman, I was just in Doha the day before yesterday. Everyone that I spoke to there had absolutely no concern about the Taliban living there among them. And they didn't present this in an anti-American way, but they had absolutely no problem with it. Secretary Hagel says that those 5 detainees are not a threat to the United States, but obviously there have been some in national security who have said they are. Your colleague, Senator Joe Manchin, among them. He says he's concerned that they could be back in a position to do harm to Americans. Was this deal worth it?
I think if we start weighing whether or not it's valuable to bring back one of our soldiers that's been held in captivity, who's been a POW.
Even if these 5 cost more American lives in the future?
Well, I think what we've got to make sure, and that's what a classified briefing is going to provide us, which we haven't had yet, is what steps are being taken to make sure that doesn't happen.
All right. Well, Congresswoman, thank you very much for taking the time tonight. Congresswoman Jackie Speier saying it was much too early to rush to judge defending